This is my second time recording this. I try to cut the video short. It's about 20 minutes. Let's see how well I can do. I wanted to make a short video here about the Hurwal Traverse routes and just possible routes and modifications if they're helpful to others. This is Onyx maps. It's pretty useful for the Wallowas. It has a lot of the cutoffs that you may not know about. If you're kind of scouting a new hike or something like that, I could never find this cutoff to the Chief Joseph Summit before the first time I did the summit, as well as the cutoff to Sacagawea over on the in near Hurricane Creek and all that stuff. I could never find that either. But Onyx Map does a pretty good job of laying all this out. So the Hurwal Traverse, I'm going to assume a lot of knowledge and assume that you have experience hiking to the Matterhorn, Chief Joseph Mountain, which you should do if you haven't done it, just to kind of scout around. It's also an awesome hike, by the way, of course, so do it anyway. But you should do that to kind of scout the Hurwal Traverse before you do it. Some other trail runners made a video, and just to kind of cover what the Hurwal Traverse is, they did the opposite route of what I would consider the main loop. So they actually went up the traditional Ice Lake hike and route here, and so they went to Ice Lake and then up the Matterhorn. I don't recall if they went to Sacagawea or not, and then returned to do the Hurwal portion. But basically, they came up here to Ice Lake, up the Matterhorn, and into this .9775. Maybe they went to Sacagawea, maybe they didn't, but then they came out here on the Hurwal Divide Southwest and then followed along the Hurwal Divide, I don't know what you call it, north, but the main Hurwal summit, which is pretty high, and then descended down to this is called Miner's Basin. This get rid of that. But Miner's Basin, you see the label there. Miner's Basin is over here. I'm not sure what the name of this little mini summit kind of shelf thing is. It's pretty rugged and cool looking. But then you go back to Chief Joseph and then take the Chief Joseph hike or ascent route just back down to the state park. That was their route, and that just gives you an overall idea of what the main loop is, which is I went in reverse of that. I went up to Chief Joseph Summit via the traditional hike or summit hike, and then to Miner's Basin where this little red dot is, and then up the Hurwal, the north-south portion, and then this southwest portion to 9775. I did not go to Sacagawea. I went to the Matterhorn and then to Ice Lake, and then egressed out of the traditional Ice Lake trail. The reason I wanted to bring that up is that I did that intentionally as far as logistics goes, so that I could refill my water at Ice Lake. As you can tell, just from the appearance and colors on the map, the Hurwal Traverse is very barren. There's no water sources for the majority of the route, and that's why I intentionally put Ice Lake last. I had a bottle or two of water left when I reached Ice Lake, but I filled up all my backups and had a bunch left, or some leftovers and just extra to make it back to the campground. But that gives you an idea what the main route is, like the longest loop, which I believe was around 23 miles and maybe 9 to 10,000 feet of ascent. So it is very, very rugged. This is an extraordinary amount of exertion, and that's why it's worth making a video out of. It is pretty dangerous just for the level of exposure and exertion that's required to do the whole main loop. As you can tell, and if you've ever been up Sacagawea via Thorp Creek, which this year is my first time doing that, there's many modifications that you could make to cut this thing short. You could come up via the Sacagawea Thorp Creek trail kind of route, get up Sacagawea, go to 9775, and then off to the Matterhorn, return, and then maybe do portions, either some or all of the Hurwal. And you can egress out of here, this little basin. This is kind of a boulder field where this blue line is. This is traversable. I even talked to a hunter up there recently who said that he took this when he brought a goat out with a young kid he was guiding. But you could take this out and then back to Thorp Creek. You could also just continue and do the entire Hurwal and then cut back to Thorp Creek Trail down this kind of slope here. Without going all the way back to Chief Joseph. There's probably other routes by which you could go back to Chief Joseph and then descend one of these valleys. I don't know what's down here. I've never been down this, so I don't know how safe that is. But there's plenty of modifications to this. The main loop again is about 23 miles with 9,000 ish, 10,000 ish feet of ascent. It's pretty awesome. You're doing, I think you do about 5 summits, whether or not those are named summits or not. I mean, you do Chief Joseph, you go over Miners Basin, the Hurwal Divide, North Summit, and then the South Summit, 9775, which is one of the coolest places on Earth, I think, and then back to the Matterhorn and egress out of Ice Lake. So it really ties together all the greatest features of the Wallowas, but that's it for the overall layout. I did want to cover a couple of details here. As far as logistics go, there were pretty bad storms the day before when I did this thing in kind of early August, I believe. And then the day of, there were storms out to the east, like just 1 or 2 ridges over, kind of around Aneroid Peak. And I just decided to take a chance and do it anyway. It did, the conditions did give me a lot of shade, which was very, very good. I don't even know if I could have done it in full sun. Just the level of exposure and altitude probably would have made you sick or something. But nonetheless, the conditions, as risky as it was, made it pretty good. I just wanted to cover a couple details here. I made it up to Chief Joseph Summit, and then headed out. Oh, that jumped. I apologize. Give me a second here. Just bear with me. Made it up to Chief Joseph Summit and then off to Miners Basin, this kind of ridge line here, and then down. The reason I have this little red line here is, and you can see this little dark spot. It doesn't show up on any of the maps that I've seen, like Google, Bing, or anything like that, the satellite views, but there's a very obvious cave here that you will be able to find, no problem at all, because this rock, it's very white, it's very bright colored, and then there's some sort of volcanic cave that just kind of shoots out, and it's above the ground, it has a ceiling and everything, and it's perfect kind of shelter. The reason I bring that up is that would make a good stash point if you wanted to stash just food or water, like the previous day or maybe 2 previous days before you do the traverse. But primarily this little cave is kind of a rally point at which you can kind of just assess your condition, how you feel, and what the environmental conditions are like, and whether or not you want to commit, because that's kind of the point of no return, or the last point when it would be easy to just go back to the state park via the Chief Joseph route and turn back, because once you're on the Hurwal, it is kind of a commitment. You're pretty much, you need to make it to Ice Lake. There's not a lot of egress, as I covered, and that's really what I wanted to share, was just some of the egress routes. You could go down here if you needed to Thorp Creek, but for the most part, if you just need to kind of gauge your options and keep your options open while you're doing stuff, which you always should. Just think Thorp Creek, as far as egress goes, once you're on the Hurwal Divide, I would not dare go down Johnson Creek. I have no idea what's down there, but it looks bad. This is like traditional, kind of deceptive. It looks okay when you're up on top looking down at these big ruts and everything like that. It looks like you could descend this and be fine, but I guarantee you that down in the lower areas you'd end up in trouble, so I wouldn't do that. When you're on the Hurwal, just kind of an aside, there is some very cool, you can't see them here from this angle, but this is the top edge of a bunch of buttresses that you can't see from anywhere else, so you don't even know that they exist. And then there's kind of a shelf right in this area, which is like goat heaven. It looks like it's a completely secluded, just little environment or ecosystem up there. It's pretty pretty cool, to be honest. And but as I kind of came down to the Hurwal, I made it to this point, the south point, and took a short break there. And by that point, I had Ice Lake in view, so I knew that I had some other options available to me for egress. Again, this is a good egress here. I didn't know that when I was up there, but this is a good egress if you needed to go back via Thorp Creek, as well as once you're on this, the map calls it Hurwal Divide Southwest, this southwest portion, you can see you have Ice Lake right here. I've actually scrambled up this before. It's not good at all. It's a bunch of scree, and you'll scree and talus and stuff, and you'll have rocks cut loose and so forth. So if you're with a partner or something like that, or others, you're gonna have to stagger yourselves so you don't throw rocks down on each other, because it is pretty bad. But you do have options here. This line is not particularly accurate, but just regardless, once you're on this kind of a ridge line, you could, if needed, just go directly back to Ice Lake. But just kind of continuing on, I did the full route back to 9775. This is all pretty good. The only sketchy part is some scrambling. I think it's down lower. The maps don't even show that. It's really funny how the maps smooth this out, because this is much steeper. You're kind of on all fours, scrambling up doing some bouldering, but it's not that bad. It's just like the rest of the Wallowas, where it's just bad enough to be fun, but it's nothing sketchy or even technical, to be honest. So, but you got to watch out when you throw in exertion and all that. But as you can tell, once you're on this section, you have the transitions back to the limestone, which, as you know, like if you've been to the Matterhorn and stuff, that has plenty of traction. It's all very smooth and cool, and very cool. So you got that going for you. But it's wonderful. Once I reached this kind of 9775 area, that was great. That was a great moment, because ordinarily I go up the Matterhorn or Sacagawea from the traditional routes and then go back into 9775. But coming back the opposite way and then exiting out of the area that I usually scout into was a very cool feeling. I don't know why. And then seeing like the karst well and so forth. That's where's that guy? It's down on the flatter area. It's right about here, I think. But regardless, I don't know. You probably know where it is if you've been to 9775 before. But yeah, I made it back to the Matterhorn. I did this route solo, so it was great to see people once I'd reached the Matterhorn. There's a party that was coming up, and I took a break at the bench, which you probably know, that overlooks the lake. That was a great feeling, just great vantage point. And then talked to those people, and then descended back to Ice Lake. As I mentioned, kind of refilled my water there, and just went out the traditional Ice Lake route. But that's it. That's kind of the overall lay of the land. That's all I really needed to cover. I did have an encounter with a bear when I was getting out. It was just off in the woods next to the trail, just whining or something, and right by the near the pump house, that tends to be where you have those interactions, and so on. I did want to, I don't know, just kind of warn, like, when I made it back to my truck, I 23 miles and 10,000 feet or whatever, I got quite a bit of shock afterward. I didn't anticipate that. I've not done a marathon before, but just I looked it up, and apparently it's fairly common. What happened is I got back to my truck, started drinking water, and my body was not metabolizing enough to really create and maintain its own warmth, and so I started shaking as I was drinking water. And I drank some more water, and that made me shake even more, because the water was just cooling me off. And yeah, as silly as that might sound, but I got really bad tremors for about half hour, 45 minutes or so, and crawled in the back of my truck into my sleeping bag. So, but that's the way, I didn't anticipate that. It was a little sketchy. I didn't know how, just because I didn't know, I've never had that happen before, didn't know how bad it would get, but maybe an hour later I was good. But that just kind of goes to show, if you're doing this, whether you do the route itself solo or with others, just make sure, or try to have, I don't know, some party or some people camping back at the state park with whom you can kind of pair up and have them watch over you and all that stuff, whether or not they're hikers or anything. Just do it that way. Have your stashes. Remember that cave is there as your rally point and a possible stash location. Beyond that, there's not much. And again, I do encourage doing the route, the direction that I went, so that you can refill at Ice Lake once your water is mostly, diminished. But that's about it. I apologize. I know this is kind of janky looking at this on just some screen recording software, and my microphone is not good and all that, but that's kind of the way it goes. So good luck. Use Onyx just like this. I don't know, use this application to kind of plot your routes and how you want to do this thing. But that's all.